Welcome to the Outsmart Burnout podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Zarya Rubin, a functional medicine doctor, an international speaker, and a burnout badass because I've been there myself. After walking away from my own high-stress medical career, I discovered how to break free from burnout to reclaim my passion, purpose, and joy. And now I'm here to help you do the same. From science-backed tips to time-saving hacks, and hopefully some aha moments that just might change your life. So sit back, relax, and let's do this. Dr. Jeannie Lawrence is a board-certified psychiatrist, therapist, writer, and advocate for physician wellness. After witnessing the epidemic of quiet suffering among her colleagues in medicine, she founded Sanctuaries, a practice built specifically for women physicians that combines psychiatry, therapy, and coaching into one integrated model based on the simple but radical premise that physicians deserve mental health care from someone who actually understands them. She's on a mission to break down the barriers that keep high-achieving women from getting real support and to prove that healing and thriving are possible, even inside systems that weren't exactly designed to support well-being. I am so excited for this conversation and to have Dr. Jeannie on the show. We have so much to talk about. We have so much in common, girl.
We do.
Yeah. So, I always start with folks, kind of the origin story, the beginnings of when people ask me, so how did you become interested in burnout? I'm like, well, let me tell you, you know what they say, do what. So I'm guessing there's probably a personal story there and some connection that inspired you to do the work that you're doing. So talk us through a little bit about your journey.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll start with medicine because that's, kind of my foundation. I went into med school, like most doctors, to help people. I decided pretty late that I wanted to become a physician. I'm kind of multi passionate. I was neck and neck between what's the word? Choosing biology versus English for my major. And I loved both of them. But at the end of the day, I chose biology. And I think one of the experiences that kind of tipped me over the edge to the medicine and science side was volunteering at a free medical clinic that was close to my college. And I really just fell in love with this idea that I could meet people where they were, sick, suffering, whatever the case may be, and be a part of creating healing for them and hope for them. And so medicine was the path I chose ultimately.
I identify with all of that so much. Being a multi-passionate person, oh my gosh, I did go to opera school before medical school, so it was like a real difficult choice between music and medicine, and I struggled a lot, but yeah, ultimately made that choice, and it's so funny that you said that you went into medicine, to help people because that was also kind of my reasoning, and I had a mentor very early on who said to me, okay, when you go for your med school interviews, you're going to be great. You're going to be fine. Just don't say that you want to help people and save the world. I'm like, but that's what I want to do.
Yeah. I really relate to I didn't know about your love of music, but I love music too, and that's another layer of that multi passionate thing. And yeah, like you said, ultimately we both wanted to go in because we wanted to help people, whether that sounds cliche or not. It's the truth.
Totally.
Yeah. So yeah, go into med school, finish that, and then it's residency. And I guess before that, I had to decide on specialty, of course. And I decided on psychiatry. I didn't really decide on psychiatry. I like to say, like, I didn't choose it, like, I psychiatry chose me, truly. When I went to medical school, you know, I'm the first physician in my family. I didn't have, like, examples necessarily of, like, what it looked like to be a physician, or to become a physician, so I did not know psychiatry was a specialty. I remember when I was, like, pre-med on a tour, I remember, like, We were walking the campus of the med school that I would go to, and I was walking next to one of the deans of the school, of the med school, and she happened to be a psychiatrist and a woman psychiatrist. And I looked over at her and I was like, wow, I didn't know psychiatrists were medical doctors. And which is something you're not supposed to say, like, but
Right? I mean, like, are they PhDs? I mean, I don't
they had
know. It could be. Yeah.
and, she was nice about it and told me, like, "Yes, actually, we are, and this is a path that you can choose." And when you go through all the rotations, and I liked all of them well enough, but psychiatry for me was hand in glove. Like, it was just a natural fit. I loved the stories of the patients. I loved the science, but it was just I'm an introvert, so it just felt right for me to kind of sit with people, hold this space for them, listen to them. I'd always been that person, like, in my friend groups anyway, like the person that is a really good listener, or the person that the stranger on the bus would be telling their life story to. And so once I got to psychiatry, I was like, "Oh, okay, my life is making sense now."
Okay.
The
I
the
was usually the person on the bus.
You're the person on the bus. Okay.
I mean, like, I'm gonna tell this to a stranger my entire life
Mhm.
story, but it's so funny because I almost went into psychiatry as well. I was really torn. I was on the cusp of psychiatry versus neurology, and it was a tough call, but I
Yeah.
picked neurology in the end. But I probably should have picked psychiatry. Maybe I would have been happier. Maybe I would have stayed in medicine. Who knows? We'll never know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yes. So again, much alignment, and there are all kinds of personalities, of course, in psychiatry, but it felt very much like an easy fit for me. It was easy internally for me. I will share this story, but it wasn't necessarily an easy choice, though. You mentioned, like, a mentor of yours kind of telling you, what to do and not to do, and on your application. I had an attending, my internal medicine attending, tell me, pull me aside and tell me, like, "Hey, I heard you're interested in psychiatry. Like, don't do that." And yeah, very much, like, very clearly discouraged me from going into the field. In his opinion, I wouldn't be respected. It wasn't like, primary care or whatever the case may be. And to be fair, like, I went to med school at a time when psychiatry was not like a popular field to go into. And so I heard that. I didn't listen to it, but I, I got that feedback.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I think that was the case. I mean, I went to med school a long time ago, and there was a lot of stigma
yeah,
surrounding mental health in general and psychiatry in particular. That it's not a real specialty. It's not You're not really doing medicine. It's a cop out. You're just a self help kind of chatty person. You're not a real doctor. And I think all of that's, of course, BS. But
it was pervasive then, and it probably still is now. But yeah, that was some feedback I got. I also got some raised eyebrows, I think, from family and friends who kind of assumed that I would do something, like primary care, something that people are more familiar with. And I really had to listen to myself and my heart and my intuition, even at an early stage in my career, in order to make a choice that aligned with me. And I'm really grateful that I did that. I'm really grateful that I did that. I know lots of people struggle to do so. And so, yeah, I had to follow my heart on that one.
hmm, I'm so glad you did. So you're trucking along, med school, residency, practicing as a psychiatrist, and things are going okay, right? And then from the outside, I'm sure like you're really successful and you have it all together. What happened? When did things really become kind of that stress increasing, that sort of unmanageability or that disconnect from the way your life is going, the way the internal and the external not matching up. At least that's how it was for me with burnout. It was like it was a slow burn and it crept up on me, but it definitely just got worse and worse and worse. And I just ignored all the signs, all because we push through, we're women, we're doctors, we're hardcore. We're just like, oh, I can do anything. I'll just keep going.
Yeah. I think slow burn is a good way to put it. So, to your point, yes, I think things were going well for some time. Right after residency, a lot happened all at once, right? Like, I finished residency. I get my first attending job. I got engaged my last year of residency. So I got married a couple months after residency. I moved from my little one bedroom apartment to, a big, lovely house. And we, moved to a new city. And so, like, This was like the culmin.
There are a lot of life stressors all at once, and even the positive life stressors
Yeah.
are still life stressors.
Yeah. That I didn't know, okay? Like, what I thought is that, like, I'm moving in a direction, right? I am working really hard to do what I wanna do, which is to be a doctor, to be a psychiatrist. I wanted, of course, to find love and to get married and do all the things that I was doing, and, that once I got there, that I would be happy, right? Like, this was
Right,
gonna
you're
be
like, "All my dreams are coming true.
all
Why
my
do I
dreams
feel
come
like
true.
crap?"
And I didn't feel like crap right away, but, like, it was a time where, yeah, I didn't realize that, as you said, all even positive stressors are stress, and it was a lot of change at one time that I assumed, you know, in my journey up to that point would lead to, like, this lasting happiness and happily ever after, and once the kind of initial, happiness of all of that and euphoria of all of that stuff kind of wore off, then you're kind of left then I was kind of left wondering, "Okay, like, now what? Is this it?" And, I know now that, like, achieving things and pushing towards success and getting towards these goals that we have, no matter how beautiful they are, only create, like, happiness for a short-lived amount of time, right? I
That
wasn't prepared for
damn
this. I
hedonic
didn't know this.
adaptation, man.
Yeah, I did not know that. So that came as a shock to me when I, looked up in my life and looked up at my life after a couple years and realized that, like, yeah, I wasn't as happy or fulfilled as I assumed I would be in this life that looked really beautiful from the outside. And I think I carried with me like the same kind of conditioning and habits that I had like as a trainee and as a student. And some of those things were like, okay, like if you have a problem, like the solution is to work harder. If you have a problem, the solution also is to kind of keep it to yourself, right? Like medicine like kind of requires us to stay buttoned up and compartmentalized
Mm,
and professional and have the answers as opposed to being the one seeking the answers. And so I kept a lot of this to myself, and I think over time, right, they created a disconnect with people. It created a loneliness that was hard to explain, even being surrounded by lovely people, not really feeling like anybody really got me. And that's a lot to carry by yourself.
yeah.
I also had this voice in my head that was like, why would I be complaining? Right. Like,
Right, like, "Girl, what's your problem? Like,
what's
what
the
are you
problem?
complaining about? You have everything." Like, and
Yeah.
and that sort of stigma of like, "Well, I can't talk to anyone about it because they're gonna look at me like I have 2 heads." Like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, poor you. You've got, a husband and happy life and you're a successful doctor and like, what? So that really does create a barrier to being vulnerable and opening up to people and seeking that help and reflection and validation that, it's just something is off, something is not right.
Yeah.
So how did you
Agree.
finally like figure it out and get it all out there in the open?
Yeah. It took time. I think what I was doing before I figured it out was trying to find the solutions outside of myself. If I change my job, if I hit these goals, etc. Like if I continue on the treadmill, then maybe
The path, yep.
I will find the solution, the happiness I was looking to and looking for. And what I learned is that the answer wasn't outside of me. That I mean, that's really that's really what it was. I was my kind of light bulb aha moment when this finally occurred to me. I was like taking a walk. I'll never forget it. It was super hot outside. I was living in Florida at the time. And I was listening to a coaching podcast. And at the time, this is a long time ago, I didn't even know what coaching was. That was like the first time that I'd listened to this podcast or even really heard the concept. But I remember the host saying, that your thoughts create your emotions. And I was dealing with a lot of emotions, a lot of frustration, whether it was at work or in my personal life. And again, I felt like it was all outside of me. And so to hear someone say something that was very familiar sounding to me, by the way, because I'm a CBT trained like psychiatrist. So like
Right. I'm like, this is your wheelhouse.
this was my wheelhouse, and yet I never thought to apply it to myself. Like, my wheelhouse was applying that concept to my patients who were suffering with depression or anxiety, and I didn't see myself in that way, and so that's for them. It's not for
Yep.
me, and I think hearing it on a podcast and a non-clinical podcast at that made it a little bit more accessible to my brain in that moment, and I was like, "Wait a minute,
Mm.
this is, like, going out to everybody, in the world, like, this might apply to you too," and it was a light bulb moment for me because it meant that maybe I don't have to continue to try to change every big external circumstance in my life before I can be happy. Maybe I can get off the achievement treadmill, which is really a treadmill trying to find happiness, right? Like maybe I can like look within and start to make some shifts that are inside of me and a lot more accessible than changing my
Mm.
whole life at once. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that that's something really important that I try to teach my kid. And that I think that's something that we needed to hear more as young people that we certainly didn't hear. And that is that concept of hedonic adaptation and the hedonic treadmill. And that, like, you think that these achievements are what and these goals and hitting these milestones and getting these awards or getting these degrees and these jobs and all of this you know these accolades are gonna it's what's gonna make you happy, or I will be happy when this happens. And then what happens is it's just your nervous system, your brain, it adapts. It's like, "Oh, this is my new normal." It's like, we're looking at cars and, I have to get a new car, and it's like, you you think that this new car is gonna be like everything is gonna change your life, and after a while, you're like, "Well, it's just the car." It's like you get used to the air you breathe, the water, the fish swimming in the water. It's like, "Well, it's water. It's wet." You start to adapt and adjust, and then you require more and more and more. So if you are hanging your happiness on that, it's just that payoff doesn't really ever come. I mean, it comes briefly.
And then that's
So
it.
yeah, and so it's fleeting. And so then how do we then adapt and adjust our expectations or focus on what truly is going to make us happy?
Yeah, that's a big question. That's a big question. I think it starts with awareness of what you just said, which I told you I didn't know at the time, which is that yeah, all of the success that we've been after does not in and of itself create lasting happiness and fulfillment. And that seems simple enough, but everybody lives oppositely. I certainly did. Like, right, everybody, especially physicians, were always like delaying our gratification and
Yeah.
pushing through and pushing harder with the idea that on the other side, it'll all be worth it and I'll finally be happy. And so I think just the awareness that okay, that's not it is a really good starting point. So then the question is like, well, what is it, right? Like how do I like create a life that I love? And I think you have to understand, I had to understand that this is like a daily decision, right? This is like not it's not in the destination as much as it is in the journey itself. And how can I be intentional then about cultivating happiness and the things that support a long-term happiness and fulfillment in my life on a daily basis, as opposed to like let me kind of deny myself and become a shell of myself in pursuit of one day. So yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, I love that so much. And I think I want to get back to the podcast because I just think that's incredible that somehow something led you to this coaching podcast and you're a psychiatrist. And then you're like, what is this coaching business anyway? Like, is this all woo or is it fake? Or, I mean, I'm sort of speaking from personal experience of how did I end up as a coach? So I want to hear more about like, it's so ironic that we discover these things that we probably had dismissed in the past, and they can really tap into something. So, we sort of think of like, well, what's coaching really going to do for me? Like that therapy isn't going to do, or that, psychiatric treatment, mental health treatment isn't going to do because like aren't those things on a higher pedestal or level? But then coaching really has something very different to offer, and I think you kind of discovered that almost by accident when you were listening to that podcast. It was like this aha moment, this light bulb moment of like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way before, even though I'm a psychiatrist." So, how did you then find yourself becoming a coach yourself?
Yeah. There are layers to that story too, but I do think like to your point, like a seed was definitely planted that day because once I heard that, like I what's the word? Like I wanted more. Like I wanted to hear more about that, right? Like I went down that rabbit hole and I started applying coaching to my own life and I started receiving and investing in it. And it was a large part of what changed my life, right? I think the concept is simple enough and ubiquitous enough, like in the at least in the cognitive behavioral coaching space, that like it was less about the coach and more about like the concept and like the hope and empowerment that it gave me. And when I say it changed my life, like I went from being very much like probably on my very well on my way to burnout for sure, and that's a whole other story, and also kind of dissatisfied in multiple areas of my life and not knowing what to do about any of it, to feeling very powerful and like I could change anything that I wanted to in my life. And it started like with my own emotional state, like, and feeling a lot more joy and peace of mind and all of that kind of stuff, like choosing that and having the tools to cultivate that for myself. And then that there it had a ripple effect, right? Then I was able to meet my health goals, and then I was able to start a business, and then I was able to, do all these things that I had wanted to do but couldn't mobilize myself to do because I was fighting so much with what I couldn't control.
So the decision then for you to sort of become a coach and then merge
Okay.
your two passions in a way of like psychiatry and coaching, and then how you weave that all together
Yeah.
and what that looks like for folks.
Yeah. So I became a people ask me this a lot. It's a good question. Okay, like you're a psychiatrist, like why even bother with coaching, right? Like why would you do that? So in 2020, this is like the beginning of COVID. Like I had already found coaching. I was already feeling miles better. I was still practicing as a psychiatrist, but here comes COVID, and it's scary and it's terrible, for everybody, and I think especially for physicians being the people on the front line and sacrificing so much, right, to take care of everybody else. And
I can't even imagine. I was so relieved that I was no longer practicing
Mhm.
medicine. I mean, my husband was, so it was very difficult, but I mean, I can't even fathom.
Yeah, that time really pulled on my heart to like want to do something, right? Like I was seeing patients in my clinic, but like we were all online, and I was, seeing kind of living a little bit vicariously through like the physician Facebook groups and like seeing the outpouring of posts of like how people were like really struggling, like even while they went to work, even while they put on their their white coat and PPE and all of that kind of stuff, like struggling a lot with anxiety and depression and like hopelessness and fear and all of the things that are very that we can imagine. And I wanted to say something about that. I wanted to do my part, I guess, right, in trying to offer something in that space. And so I started writing. Writing is, I mentioned that I almost was an English major,
Yes,
one of
yes.
those that I had put off, a long time ago because of medicine. But I wanted to express myself and I wanted to contribute, right, to this world problem. And I was like, I have some answers to this. Like, I know a little bit about like mental health, and I know a little bit about like how to stay stable even when the world around you feels very chaotic and unstable. And so I started writing a blog, and eventually I started sharing that in physician communities. And it really took off, especially when I started writing about the unique challenge of that women physicians face, the very ones that I had faced before, where you can look really good from the outside and nobody knows how much you're struggling on the inside, and how hard it can be for a physician especially to break out of that because of stigma, and how hard it can be to access the right level of care because you're worried about like, the repercussions on your job, and if the board is going to ask about mental health treatment. Like there's so many barriers that women and women physicians and physicians in general really face when it comes to having an inner struggle that nobody sees, but then getting the help, like it becomes like really hard. And what I wanted and what through my writing, like I started answering questions that people had, like, okay, this is true. Like there is a big disconnect that we have between our outside and our inside, and we don't have access to the kind of easy access to the level of care that we need sometimes. Like, what can we do? Like, what are the solutions? And something that I knew that like really combines like my background as a psychiatrist and as a CBT trained clinician, and also now as somebody at that time who was at least using coaching tools and had created a lot of change in my life, starting with my inner life, was that my idea was that, like, maybe it all doesn't need to be, like, behind the closed doors of the clinic, right? Like maybe there's something that can be offered to physicians to empower us and to help us to start to chip away like at some of the fear, right? The everyday problems, the perfectionism, the imposter syndrome, and sometimes the more
Mhm.
serious problems like the burnout and all of those things. Like I really believe, and this is a little bit of a it's not a radical idea, but it feels like a radical idea, especially coming from me as a psychiatrist, is that like some of this can be made available like to my colleagues like outside of like an appointment like necessarily in a psychiatry clinic or a therapy clinic. And this is not to say that like coaching in any way is a substitute at all for mental health treatment, but I've been doing this long enough to know that like it can be a very powerful adjunct, and it can be like close the gap between like the incredible work that mental health treatment does, like getting us from crisis to a stable point to like from that stable point, like creating something more that I find a lot of physicians want, which is to really flourish and thrive. And I think there's not enough conversation about the fact that there is such a thing beyond just getting stable, but like there is a world in which like you can have purpose and connection and meaning and be in a flow state and do all of these things and have a life that, you really do enjoy both inside and out. It looks impressive on the outside. We have that down pat, but also feels good on the inside. And so hopefully that answers your question. One of the main reasons I gravitated towards coaching was in my eyes, to expand access to really the tools that physicians need to first feel better and then to, live a life that they really love inside and out. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so good, and I love that, and I think that there's a certain stigma around mental health and seeking healthcare, even today, seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist. Then there's also a certain stigma, I feel like, around coaching, especially among physicians, and I think it's shifting, but that, like, this isn't real, it's not good, it doesn't work, it's, not evidence-based or it's made up or so it's like there's almost like 2 different sets of misconceptions or stigma at play, and so to be able to overcome all of that and convince folks like, "Hey, you know what? This is actually it's pretty awesome and it's powerful and it can help you." I think that's a big achievement to do that.
I think I mean, you just have to believe in what you're doing. Like there always be people who get it and don't, and it's not for everybody for sure. But it kind of reminds me of like when I went into psychiatry in the first place. Like you got to like drown out like the anything that you got to drown out the noise because there will always be noise, and kind of listen to your heart.
Absolutely.
So
So yeah, let's switch gears a little bit because I want to talk about your concepts of, thriving and versus surviving. And I think a lot of us go through life and certainly go through medicine, go through medical training in survival mode. And then we get used to it. And then that sort of becomes our new normal and our new way of operating in the world. And we can get so used to it that we kind of accept it and normalize it. And then that becomes our baseline is just this kind of barely making it through. And so, talk to us a little bit about that scenario and then how to get people from there to the next level of, you know what, you don't have to go through life like this. Like, there's another way. And then what that can look like.
yeah. I think you're right. Like most of us get very used to surviving life, like medicine. I think sometimes about like the terms that are used in medicine, like front lines and in the trenches, and it's
It's
like,
like, I didn't sign up to be in a war zone. Yeah. Like,
but that's what it feels like, and that's the
uh huh.
culture,
Uh
and
huh.
yeah, it is something to kind of survive. And so there are lots of things that we do right to survive, like medicine and all of that. What I see, like, when folks come to me, in the throes of burnout, and most times it's been going on for years before they reach out for some support, is that they've been in survival mode so long, and what that looks like is, like, putting themselves last, like, for years, decades, right? Like, kind of abiding by the idea that the work comes first, everybody else comes first, and, you come last, and so really, like, depleted and a long-term lack of self-care. I think there's this, part of survival is, like, this disconnect that we have or develop from our bodies, like our human bodies, right? I have a physician client right now who is a woman physician who works in emergency medicine and very, very burned out at the beginning of our work together. And she described it really beautifully. Like, she said that, like, in order to survive being an ER doc, like, she's had to sacrifice her body and she had to disconnect herself from her body, right, in order to work these grueling shifts, right? With very little sleep. The things that we do, like skipping bathroom breaks and and lunch breaks and all of the things that we need, like there's a true disconnect from our body. And that's part of what feels like survival, but then it kind of carries like way longer than is humanly possible. There's so much. There's like the people pleasing and the lack of boundaries, like the we have to say yes and make everyone happy because like you think about being like a trainee or a student, like where your whole career trajectory, right, is tied up in the opinions of those who are ahead of you, your attendings and their
Mhm, mhm.
recommendations that they're going to make or not make. And so it becomes like kind of a way to survive medicine that you are amenable and don't set boundaries and say yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, sir. How high. Yeah.
Exactly, and so I think that the challenge is that the things that help us survive medicine and get through training and all of that kind of stuff, we never shut it off, and so we bring it into our lives as attendings, and it sticks with us and into our personal lives as well, and it sticks with us, and it doesn't work after a while. If you think of burnout and burning out as like this chronic stress state that it is, and there's always like a wall that you're gonna hit. Like, that's usually when I see people, like, there's always a point at which, like, the fire can burn no longer, right? Like, you are now, like, in the throes of burnout, and, yeah, I think it comes to your point from and one explanation is, like, just this ongoing survival mode for really long periods of time that we don't recognize at first is not sustainable for the long haul.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think some of the beginning work and I think a lot of, like, what is talked about is, like, how do we get out of survival mode? How do we set boundaries? How do we, stop the people pleasing as much? How do we, take care of ourselves? How do we stop the drift to down the path from burnout to depression to,
Stop the bleeding.
yeah, stop the bleeding, essentially. But I've become really interested and so that's, like, really important work, right? It has to it's a part of the process, like, you can't go from, super
You
burnt
can't skip over it, yeah.
with it, right? But I think what I want people to know is that even, like, after the recovery of the, like, active symptoms of burnout, like, there's more, like, there's more, and, thriving is what can be on the other side of shifting from burnout and survival mode, and, there's literature, right, on, like, what that really means, like, it's not just a cute little, term, right, but, like, what is flourishing, right? Like, and, there's lots of, research in the positive psychology space, but about, like, can you generate positive emotions? Do you have like relationships that support you? Do you do work that makes you feel purposeful? Are you engaging right in your work and finding flow in what you're doing? All of these things that like go from help you go from just like I'm stable, I'm functioning, because that's usually where we stop to like I'm actually like really flourishing and thriving and enjoying and making the most of this one life that I have. I think it's important that people know that, that there's more than just recovery.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I just sort of thought, like, when I was in my worst stages of burnout, I at one point, I think I convinced myself, like, I guess this is just what adulting is, like, that it's really awful and, like, life is really terrible and miserable, and I'm like, "But I guess this is just what it is because this is what I picked," you know? But and it often takes something pretty major to shake us out of that.
yeah. Yeah, I call that the wall or the turning point, and it's always, like, really pretty terrible, and yet it is also that opening, that opportunity that, like, shakes us enough that, okay, we're like, "Okay, I have to change direction now." So, it's a gift for some as well because it is the thing that
Yeah.
launches you can launch you onto another path.
Yeah. I mean, I think the concept of thriving in life is so important. And if folks are looking for some more practical tools, like if they are not sure where to start, or if they're listening to the podcast right now and they're like, huh, am I stuck in survival mode? Am I thriving? I don't know. And if I want to be doing less surviving and more thriving, where do I start?
Yeah. I think the first step is kind of what we mentioned before is that like we can't like bypass the burnout or speaking to the burnout recovery. Like that is important work. And so, you know, I'm imagining a lot of people listening, like, may really, see themselves in descriptions of burnout. And I mean, the first step truly is to address that, like, whether it's with a therapist, a psychiatrist, a coach, it doesn't matter. Like, just reaching out for help and support, getting out of like the mindset that like I should be able to figure this out on my own, I think is really important because it's almost impossible, like, to try to heal the same brain that's like actively like kind of on fire under the stress of chronic burnout. And so that's the first thing. Like, do not pass the work of like truly like stabilizing your nervous system and recovering from burnout in the first place. But once you've done that work, I think like moving from surviving to thriving asks that you take a look inside and understand and own like the dreams and the vision for your life that you've probably, like, put, like, in a box somewhere, right? Like, lots of times, like, as children, like, we're very imaginative. Anybody who's become a physician, like, was a big dreamer to even think that you could be a doctor one day, and we lose that vision, that imagination, that idea that, like, anything is possible. And thriving, I think, requires that to tap back into some of that kind of imagination, that vision, and that dream, and that belief that anything is possible. And if you don't quite believe it at first, like, that's a belief to borrow, like, from from one of us who like believes it, because I believe that fully, like, anything is truly possible. Playing with that idea, playing with that, and then allowing yourself to see your own unique preferred future. And you have to do it without, like, what our physician brains love to do, which is, like, figuring out the how. Like, if what usually happens, like, if we even throw a dream out there, immediately we wanna know, like, what are the action steps? What's the strategy? How am I gonna do this? How are we gonna make this work
Mhm.
financially? Going down that train of thought is going to immediately shut down any big dream that you have. And so allowing yourself to just kind of play, right, mentally with like the what you want, the vision that you have, the dream that you once had and put away, like, and letting that just be enough for a while is a great first step. I think a second step is getting clear on your values. What makes you tick? Like, what is most meaningful to you? What do you care about? Burnout, a big part of it is a shift away from your values. We're asked to work sometimes in systems that don't align with our values, right? This was certainly the
Mhm.
case for me. Like, when I was in my last employed position, doing 15-minute med checks, I told you, like, I went into psychiatry because I love stories and spending time with patients. Like, this is like a total misalignment to be
Mm.
that work environment, right? Understanding that about myself so that I could make decisions that then align with the kind of person that I am at my core heals burnout, right? It gets you back, right, in alignment with just who you are. And now my practice, like, we have these very luxurious and luxuriously long sessions for this reason, like, so we can go deep, but also because that is very aligned for the kind of work that I'm best at doing. And so getting clear on your values and knowing that it's
Mm.
okay and possible to live and work in alignment with those is a really powerful second step, I think. I think 3, I'm big on what I call emotional mastery. Emotional mastery is something like one of the core, pillars that I teach inside my program. It really combines, like, my background in psychiatry and therapy and coaching. And what it really is like, as you start to build more aliveness and alignment in your life, you're gonna come up against like emotions like guilt, right? You're gonna feel guilty maybe like when you set a boundary or, say like this is something important to me. I want to, do this thing that people don't expect you to do, right? There's gonna be fear, there's gonna be self-doubt. Like those are natural human emotions. The question is like, what do you do with them? And mostly what we do without the skill of emotional mastery is allow those fears and that guilt and all of those very human emotions to derail us from actually pursuing a life that lights us up and brings us joy. And so emotional mastery is the work of understanding and the skill of feeling those emotions without allowing them to derail you, and in fact feeling those emotions and allowing them to propel you into exactly what it is you're here to create. So yeah, those three.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Before we end this wonderful conversation, we have a little segment called the rapid fire round, which is where I just ask you some quick questions and, you just answer however you feel like you want to answer. Some people love it, some people hate it. Let's just see how it goes.
You're right. Let's go.
Okay, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Ooh, I'm a morning person as long as those mornings are to myself. Yeah.
Mm,
Caveat. I like to
I
be
like that.
in the morning. Yeah.
What is one self care tool that you personally use on a regular basis?
I call it gratitude and gains. It's a
Mm,
little practice where I'm writing at the end of the night, especially what I'm grateful for, but also like how I'm moving forward in my life. This kind of allows like the positive effects that it's evidence based around like scanning your environment for what you're grateful for. We know about gratitude and its power, but the gains part is like how am I moving towards the life that I said I want, right? Like, what progress, what small steps have I taken today that align with, the direction that I said I want to go? It kind of reminds me every day that even at the end of a really busy day that feels like nothing got done, that actually I am moving forward. I'm not stuck, and that's really powerful and helps me sleep like a baby. So,
fabulous. What is the worst advice you've ever received?
mm, don't go into psychiatry.
I had a feeling that might have been it.
Of course.
Oh my gosh. What is your favorite way to spend a day off?
Ooh, I love the beach. Just came back, and if I could go every day, I probably would.
Man, see, we live sort of near the beach. I'm putting that in quotation marks for those listening because it's the Oregon coast and it's incredible and it's gorgeous, but it's freezing and windy and rocky. So it's not quite, it's the ocean and
Yeah,
it's gorgeous, but I do love the beach too. Oh my goodness. Yeah. If you weren't a psychiatrist, you'd be, and I think I might know the answer to this.
I would be an interior designer.
Oh, then I don't know. I was like, she's gonna be like an English professor or a writer, but
No,
interior d interior designer, okay. Well, I see the room that you're in, it looks very chic and good. I that's amazing. I love it. Okay. What is one word that your clients would use to describe you?
empathic is one that comes up a lot. Yeah, it gets me.
And then one word that sums up thriving.
Just one word.
Okay, you can have a few more. You can have a sentence.
Okay, I'm gonna do 2 words. Feeling alive. That's my definition. Feeling alive in one's life. Yeah,
Mm,
that's thriving.
yes. Okay, if someone listening here remembers only one thing from this conversation a week from now, what do you want it to be?
I want you to remember that you matter too. You matter too. Every person listening to this who relates to this, you're probably at the bottom of a very long list of responsibilities and putting yourself last. You matter too. That's what I want you to know. You're worth taking care of.
Well, thank you for these words and these insights and for sharing your story with us, Dr. Jeannie. I know that folks listening probably are just like, I love this conversation. It was very impactful. And I know that they're probably wondering, how can I get in touch with her? How can I maybe follow her online or work with her, where can folks discover you?
All kinds of places. I'm all over the internet. You can check out my website, JeannieLawrenceMD.com/sanctuary is the practice. But I also write on Substack. I have a blog over there. I'm active on Instagram and post every day over there as well as LinkedIn. And so, yeah, probably my favorite is
Damn, girl. Okay, so all of this stuff is going to be, all of these links are going to be in the show notes. So definitely check out Dr. Jeannie. If you love this episode and you have a friend who's struggling, who's kind of at rock bottom, or maybe doesn't even know they're burned out, share the episode with them. And if you really enjoy listening to the show, leave us a like, a rating, a review. It really does help the podcast get seen and heard by more folks so we can help more people, because that's what we're here to do. And of course, as always, remember, burnout is not your destiny. It's your wake-up call.
I love it. I love it.